Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the AIPPI D&I webinar, Why Caregiving is D&I and Mental Health Issue. I'm a moderator today, Mami Hino from Japan. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome our special guest, whom I will introduce just a moment. Before we dive into the main session, I have a few quick housekeeping announcements. Please show the slides announcement. Today's webinar will be recorded and published later on AIPPI YouTube channel. Questions to the speakers can be submitted via Q&A box. Q&A session will be at the end if we have time. There is a brief survey after the webinar. Thank you for your feedback. That's very helpful for us. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. Please show the first slide. Pamela Wilson. Pamela is a renowned caregiving expert with 25 years of hands-on experience supporting older adults, individuals with disabilities, and caregivers. She leverages this extensive background to provide virtual and on-site counseling, education, and support for aging adults and their families. Felipe Costa Sampaio Octaviano. Felipe is a clinical psychologist specializing in gerontology who designs caregiver stress management programs based on mindfulness practices. He previously developed a psychological intervention project for Rio de Janeiro Municipal Secretariat and has taught in a university-level caregiving training program. Idalla Brum. Idalla is a founding partner of Msantos intellectual property and an experienced trademark attorney handling IP matters both in Brazil and internationally. She is a member of AIPPI D&I committee. Ulla Allgayer. Ulla holds a PhD in mechanical engineering and is a founding partner of mid-sized law firm in Munich. She has over 20 years of experience as German patent attorney, European trademark and design attorney, and European patent attorney. She is also a member of AIPPI D&I committee. Please show the schedule slide. Our program will begin with a presentation by Pamela, followed by a panel discussion featuring all of our speakers. Without further ado, Pamela, the floor is yours.
And if you can advance the slide and go to the next one, please. So hi, everybody. So today I'm going to just give you a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about and then just jump right in. So I'm going to talk about what I call a caregiver timeline, because whether or not you realize you are a caregiver, you probably already are. I'll share some workplace statistics for caregivers, why families and workplaces should talk about caregiving, talk a little bit about family dynamics, and then talk about what do caregivers do all day, which are components of a care plan. And throughout my presentation, I will share international caregiving and elder law cases, because I know you all are attorneys, so you can look these up. It's really impossible to put 25 years of experience into a 20-minute presentation, but I'm going to do the best thing that I can. So caregiver timeline. Caregiving is from birth until death. So whether or not you realize it, in some way, you are a caregiver. If you're married and you have children, you are a caregiver. And although most parents don't see themselves as, quote, a caregiver, you are caregivers for your children. And then as life goes on, you may become caregivers for your elderly parents, for your spouse, yourself. And then in the middle of all of this are relationships with your family members, relationships with your siblings and other extended family that tend to be complicated when it comes to caregiving. Caregiving, because it is this lifelong effort, is wonderful when we have children, right? There's a life full of possibilities. But then when we start caring for spouses or parents or ourselves, we're kind of looking at the end of life, which can be a little uncomfortable. Caregivers tend to neglect themselves, their physical and their mental health, because they are so busy taking care of other people, children, parents, spouses, themselves, sometimes even pets. The most significant thing for everybody to recognize is that caregivers cannot do this themselves. Everybody benefits from education, consulting with experts, finding community resources, and sharing the work with everyone in your family. So the biggest piece of advice that I can give you is do not jump in and start doing everything if you become a caregiver. This is a tendency that we all have because we want to be helpful. What will happen is, especially if you're caring for a parent and you start taking over their life, you will jump in and you will make them dependent on you. And then eventually you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything. Well, you created that problem. And then you become burned out and resentful because you're doing so much. So in any relationship in your life, you want to support independence instead of dependence. Although I know you can do things quicker, faster, and easier, don't do that. Caregiving, it is a task and a relationship dynamic. And I'll talk about tasks in a minute, but what usually causes the most stress is relationships. So family expectations around caregiving, the culture that you were born in, your family's religious beliefs, societal beliefs, these most often say that women are the default caregivers. And in my opinion, that is an outdated expectation because it was based on a belief years ago that women didn't have careers and they didn't have jobs outside of the home. So it's time for families and the workplace to kind of shift their expectations about caregiving, to realize that caregiving is not only limited to women and wives and daughters and daughter-in-laws. There are many men today that are caregivers. I think the statistics are about 60% women, 40% men, although I knew that now this does differ significantly depending on the country where you live in. Companies have been very good about making accommodations for women who have children, time out of the workforce. But what I see is the accommodations for elder care are not seen in the same light. But I can say that every company wants their employees to be productive and healthy so that their health premiums can remain low. But what employers many times don't consider is that family caregiving significantly affects a caregiver's physical health and mental health. And so throughout the rest of this presentation, I'll share examples of what those are and how it happens so that you know. But quickly, just some statistics, and these are statistics from the United States, but I believe that they are very close for other companies. 73% of people in the workplace are caregivers of some type: children, parents, spouses, siblings, pets, somebody else. 80% of employees admit that caregiving affects their productivity. Mom and dad call you at work. You have to make doctor appointments. You're talking to insurance companies. And some of these things are only things that you can do during working hours. So many employees find themselves interrupted during the workday and they're working evenings and weekends. About 32% of people leave a job because of caregiving duties. They just don't think that they can contribute. They're worried about being judged by their employers, by their coworkers, because they're coming in late, they're leaving early, and they're having a lot of interruptions. Other percentages of people, and it's in the 25% range, either reduce their work time, so become part-time, or they quit, which I never recommend because it's very difficult to get back into the workforce. So all of this time is a lot of time when you think about it. So 24% of caregivers, less than 10 hours a week. 49% of caregivers, 10 to 29 hours a week outside of a regular job. So it's like having two jobs. You have your paying job, then you have your family job, and then you have your caregiving job for somebody else. And 27% caregive more than 30 hours a week. So why talk about caregiving sooner rather than later? There are statistics out there that confirm that 98% of adults 50 plus, if they were seriously ill, they would want somebody in their family, the people making decisions for them, to know what they wanted and not be second guessing. And I'll share two examples of how this happens. So I had a client. I was the medical and financial power of attorney for him. I was his trustee, and I was also the trustee for his developmentally disabled child. One day I get a call and they're like, Mrs. Wilson, we have Mr. Jones here. He is in the morgue. What would you like us to do? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't even know he was sick. He had a sudden heart attack and he died. Fortunately, he had made plans. Families in those situations where that happens and there are no plans, they're scrambling. Another client of mine, I was her medical and financial power of attorney. I got a call from the hospital over a holiday weekend saying, oh, Miss Wilson, we have Mrs. Smith here in horrible car accident. She's on a ventilator. She's on a feeding tube. What do you want us to do for her? If she had not made plans and put information in writing, there was no way I would have known what she would have wanted. I couldn't have told the hospital what she wanted. So if you are a family member, it's important to realize that unexpected things happen. And the best thing you can do today is to initiate caregiving conversations in your family with your parents, your spouse, your siblings, so that you have a plan for these unexpected situations that you cannot even imagine will happen. Caregiving is stressful. It is no surprise. The one thing I want to say about caregiving is it has two sides, and I always look at things from both sides, probably because of my fiduciary responsibilities. Caregivers are stressed out, causes a lot of health issues. The people who need care, your parents, your grandparents, other family members, they're equally as stressed out, but for different reasons. They're like, oh my gosh, I need the help of somebody else. I have to depend on somebody else, where before they were previously independent. They feel like they are losing their physical and mental capabilities. They don't feel well every day. Some people have terminal illnesses and they're thinking about death, while the caregiver's thinking about, well, I got to do all these things for this person. I had 95-year-old clients who honestly were thankful that they could get out of bed in the morning themselves without any help. How many of us take that for granted? So tasks. What does a caregiver do? This moves us into care planning and all the things that caregivers will learn by having to do them. You will learn how to manage your parents' health, their medications, their medical appointments. You will do personal things for them like bathing and dressing and showering and managing incontinence, things you never ever imagined you would have to do. You may be scheduling follow-up appointments, medical tests, showing up in the emergency room. Not only are you a master at multitasking in your day job, you will become a master at multitasking in your caregiving job. Coordinating with outside providers, in-home caregivers, doctors, hospitals, nursing homes, all these other people that you never thought you would have to work with, you will be working with them. I encourage you to learn medical terminology and acronyms, things like UTI, urinary tract infections, which are very common in the elderly, especially people with dementia. ADLs, activities of daily living. Learn about these terms so that you can converse a little knowledgeably with medical and healthcare professionals. Also, if something happens and you need to show up at the emergency room for your parents, make an emergency packet that has all of their health history, their medications, their surgeries, their doctors, their insurance cards. That way you're not going to be scrambling when an emergency happens. Learn about your government and private health insurance and how it works for older people. I can say here in the US, there is a huge difference between Medicare and Medicare Advantage plan. And I know from consulting with caregivers outside of the United States that privately purchased health insurance usually offers a few more benefits than government insurance. In your family, talk about money. I know it is an uncomfortable topic. How much money do your parents have beyond their monthly income if they have to pay for care? If you don't know, you cannot create a care plan. And these are uncomfortable, but they are very necessary conversations. Action plan for you. If you do not have a financial planner, find one and get their help now. They can help you create a plan to save for retirement and become more knowledgeable about all of these unexpected costs that healthcare and private insurance do not pay for. Next, your attorneys, legal and estate planning, extremely important. In the United States, we use terms like guardianship, conservatorship, medical and financial power of attorney, wills and trusts. I know this because I was a fiduciary for over hundreds of people in these roles privately. Other companies I know use different terms. Regardless of what words you use, you and your parents need a written estate plan no matter how old you are. And for this one, do not share attorneys with your parents, and I'll explain why in a minute. Your parents choose and have their own attorney. You have your own attorney so that you cannot be later accused by your siblings of influencing your parents. Here's a list of crazy and uncomfortable things that can happen that you want to prevent. In legal documents, add statements for investigating elder abuse, neglect of care, and financial exploitation and what happens because the offenders are most often your family members, your siblings, aunts and uncles. In that document, have a plan for incapacity if dementia occurs and someone cannot make decisions for themselves. That prevents documents made by a parent with dementia years earlier being changed later by an influential child. I have so many expert witness cases where this happens. Be clear about conflict resolution. Families in general are not always good about how to resolve conflicts. In those documents, require mediation, require arbitration for family disputes because they will happen, especially if parents have money, if there is a family business, if there are trusts and other financial assets. Other warning signs. I call this the risks of a single family caregiver, blended families, and caregiving scams. If one of your siblings is the primary caregiver and you're thinking, oh my God, thank God my brother or sister are taking care of this, I don't have to do anything. The thing that you're missing out on is that person can become very influential with your parents. They can change legal documents for their benefits, bank accounts, the title on your parents' homes. So get involved, and be in regular contact. How many of you have a never launched sibling or a financially dependent sibling who is dependent on your parents? Parents can be very emotionally attached to these children. However, this child is the one that can cause the most problems in the future. Research this. Actor Rob Reiner here in the United States and his wife allegedly murdered by their never launched son. A controlling sibling with legal authority can take advantage of parents and isolate them. There are a lot of cases here in the States of what I call custody battles over parents, because a child will move a parent into their home, take control, isolate them from their siblings, and do all kinds of not so pleasant things. Parents living alone who don't have a lot of social connections and you don't stay in touch can be a huge risk. Research actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa here in the States. They were living alone. She passed away of hantavirus. He had Alzheimer's. He died in the home because she was not there to care for him. Second marriages, blended family issues, huge issue in caregiving, very stressful. Stepmothers and stepfathers who don't want to be a caregiver for your parent, but unfortunately they have legal authority that sometimes passes down to a sibling. There are so many elder care scams right now going on, international scams, friend scams, romance scams. These people call your parents. They say that they're a child that was born from an affair 50 years ago. Parents start giving them money. Love interests will call your parents who are widowed. Then there's all the hired help and the caregiver scams that I talk about. I had a client cared for by a caregiver. She went to the registrar, got a marriage license, had him sign it, took it back, filed it. They were married. She had access to all of his money. Fortunately, I was his guardian and I got it annulled. So the whole thing is, how do you avoid all of these problems? It's family transparency and it's caregiving discussions in your family. And I know that these are not always culturally appropriate. They're not cultural because of religious beliefs, but you must do it. Start today to have family meetings to talk about caregiving across all generations in your family, you, your parents, and your children. Put in writing what your parents want for their care. Have your parents create caregiving agreements with you and your family. If you are a daughter or son, how are you going to help out? What does that look like? Will you be compensated? These things avoid all of the stress, the emotional stress in families with caregiving, separate from the tasks. If you have a sibling who is that primary caregiver, support them. Have family meetings, have Zoom calls, have phone calls. All of this is so important. So get your pens out because I'm going to give you a list of international cases that you can look up because we are time limited of issues where very prominent families have had caregiving issues that really destroyed family relationships. Singer Glenn Campbell, family isolation and visitation. B.B. King, it was business and estate. Buzz Aldrin, he was an Apollo 11 astronaut here in the States, business and foundation problems. Peter Falk, Mickey Rooney, Casey Kasem, second marriages, multiple marriages, family isolation. The singer Prince, everybody knows him, died without a will. Your IP attorneys, inheritance and control of assets, business control, control of his catalog, his legacy rights. Princess Diana in England, Bob Marley in Jamaica, George Michael in England. So, in summary, start conversations with your family, your parents, your siblings, your children, so that you can model the future of caregiving. If you are a caregiver, be very realistic about what you can and you can't do. Ask support from your siblings. If you don't have siblings, then it's talking to your parents about what you can do and can't do. Put together formal caregiving agreements. I know this sounds a little technical and a little legal, but you would be surprised the issues this can avoid. Along with this, ask your parents to think about what they want for their care. Do they want to stay home? Do they want to have caregivers? Life-saving treatments. Have them share their health and their financial information with you. Have your parents create that estate plan. And if you need help with this, seek out experts who can shortcut your learning curve. If you can advance the next slide for me. There is a lot of free information on my website. If you don't know how to do this, I have 3 free courses. I have a podcast. I have over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel that answer questions that caregivers ask. I know this was a very brief presentation. I thank you for allowing me to present today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mami.
Thank you, Pamela. It's a very insightful presentation. We learned a lot. So now we move to our panel discussion to hear additional perspectives from panelists. Could you move to the first question slide? So first question is for Pamela. Why do you think that caregiving responsibilities remain largely invisible?
You know, in the workplace, it's because employees, us, you, me, we're worried about other people finding out that we have problems, right? We don't want to be discriminated against or not promoted because we have these personal family issues. Even though talking about children is fine, talking about care for elderly parents is not. And so there's worry in the workplace that we may not be seen as competent or as able as other coworkers who don't have parent issues. We tend to hide these things. And also that society and culture see caregiving as a family problem, not as a workplace problem.
That's true. Thank you. So Idalla, as we all know, that IP profession often involves demanding deadlines, international meetings, and client expectations. Do you think that these aspects make caregiving particularly challenging?
Thank you, Mami, for the question. Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, night, everywhere you are. So yes, I believe these aspects make caregiving particularly challenging, especially here in Brazil. Is my point of view is from a Brazilian perspective. The IP profession is highly international. It is common for Brazilian practitioners to attend early morning or late night meetings to accommodate the different time zones, as this one right now, while also dealing with urgent deadlines before the BPTO, courts and foreign associations, clients' expectations for quick responses and constant availability further increase this pressure. For caregivers, and particularly for women, who still bear the most share of family and caregiving responsibilities here in Brazil, this can create significant challenges in balancing professional and personal obligations. International conference and networking events, which are essential for business development in the IP field, may also require travel and time away from family, often without adequate support structures. Although remote work and more flexible working arrangements have improved over the years, especially after the pandemic, there is still a need for law firms, companies, and professional associations to foster policies that recognize caregiving responsibilities and promote a more inclusive and sustainable working environment. We need to talk about different perspectives and realities that different professionals have across the world, and especially sometimes even the acknowledgement that someone is dealing with some type of different life that you are is also help and can increase the bonding together.
Thank you, Idalla. Ulla, so do you have any other opinion?
Well, actually, I exactly share and can only echo Pamela's and Idalla's opinion, but I wish to add something. So I think it's particularly challenging for lawyers also from another aspect if you're usually more or less suddenly involved in caregiving tasks. Lawyers usually are, well, in most cases, pretty well organized and have a structured work and plan their deadlines, and they have a very rational work. So it's not on the emotional side, especially IP lawyers. It's really, and they work completely independently. And I think the world, when you are challenged with caregiving tasks, completely clashes with this world. It's a usually highly emotional world because your family members are involved. It's a very personal thing. It hits often very suddenly. You don't have, well, much time to accommodate. You have to just work with it. And also in the process of caregiving, I think it cannot be planned like this because yeah, the person for whom we care evolves and suddenly has another issue. So it's for us, it's a completely unusual situation as well. It's not a situation which we are confronted in everyday life as an attorney or as a lawyer. So for us, I think it's also from this aspect particularly challenging. And I think the most important aspect, I think Pamela has already raised this, is we are not alone on this world, but we often don't want to hear this, that we are not alone on this world, because we are lawyers. We have to fight our own fights for our clients vis-a-vis the offices and the courts. But no, for caregiving, we are definitely not alone on this world, and we have to, for ourselves, acknowledge this and accept it. And I think that's also a very challenging task, especially for lawyers. Probably not that much in other professions. There are still some, but I think lawyers are even really hit hard with that.
Thank you, Ulla. So let's move on to the next question. Question for Felipe. What impact has caregiving had on their mental health? Felipe, you're mute. Yes.
Morning. Yes, good morning to all, and thank you very much for sharing all the experience, Pamela and Ulla and Idalla. And I think the Freud says that we have three main sources of suffering: the body decline, the relationships, and the accidents. So the work of caregiving, we experiment these three fountains of suffering at the same time. Changes occur completely, and the mind have to shape for a new relationship with time and the people that we love or are responsible for. So, and Ulla said something very important, and this time, how to change the identity from a lawyer to a caregiver. This is very harsh because from the attention of the external world, you have to change, to shift the attention to the internal world and to the emotions. So I think the biggest impact for mental health is uh, some sense of losing control of time and losing control of, some people says that it's a feeling of losing free will. So this is very, very harsh, but it's not true. It's just a feeling. It's just a huge change in their lives. So uh, to deal with stress and sometimes the toxic empathy, also when we feel too much with another person and we can't develop this feeling, so this can accumulate in a lot of ways.
Thank you. So, another question for you, Felipe. Do you think there's any way to mitigate that impact?
Yes, there is some great ways. One, of course, therapy, uh, to share the questions, the conflict, to be heard. This can expand the possibilities to deal with the problems inside and outside. And for anxiety, depression, and lack of sleep, there is also a great technique called mindfulness. There is a way to bring the mind, bring the conscious to the present time in a particular way. And when we do that, we develop not only attention, not only the sense of legitimate time, but we also embrace and accept the reality as it is. So this is very important. We suffer a lot because uh, we keep thinking too much in how the past was and how the future should be. But this is all in our minds, and we have to deal with that. We have to treat that. So mindfulness brings back the ability to, oh, this is the present, and what can I do now to feel a little bit better, or to be free of this prison that I'm sitting on. So there is a fountain of creativity in the middle of the suffering. So develop compassion, and compassion. When I say compassion, I mean the aspiration for relief in suffering. So the empathy, it's like a fuel, and compassion is like an engine. So we have to uh, transform what we feel to some kind of result in liberty, in love. So I think how much work we have, more we need to learn and to develop compassion and love.
Very interesting. So, empathy to compassion. So that's something that as a psychologist you help with your clients every day, or I'm not sure that how, if I have the problem, how I can do that by myself. Probably I cannot do that. So,
Okay, great question, Mo. I think mindfulness now we can learn with a lot of teachers, but mainly the practice is we just need to focus on a breath, for example. We have to focus on something in the present that sustains itself, like the breath, and in a gentle and open way. And sometime thinking or distraction will come, and okay, no problem. We just recognize that distraction, and we bring back the attention for the breath, or it can be the sounds, or it can be what you're feeling. So there is a 4 steps for mindfulness practice. The shift of attention, I bring back my attention for the breath, or for the feelings, or for my skin, my body, what I'm hearing. And the second step is sustain attention. And the third step is the mind wandering, the inevitable mind wandering. And the fourth step is consciousness of mind wandering. So when we do that scheme, that cycle, for times and times and over again, we train our minds to be in the present in a very honest way. in a very open way. It's not easy. It looks like easy, but when we do, we see some obstacles, and great. It's like that. We deal with our own mind. And doing that, we have also compassion practices where we can visualize the person that we are caring of and thinking, may you be health, may you be in peace, may you be free of suffering. So we can repeat that, focusing on our breaths and so on. There's a lot of practices that can be done, and a lot of solid work from 20 years in neuroscience uh, explaining how it works and how we can train our mind to deal with uh, the caregiver's issue.
Thank you so much, Felipe. Let me ask Pamela. So, what is your recommendation for all of us?
So I really like what Felipe said, because caregiving really is a mindset because it's so stressful. And even what Ulla mentioned. So a couple of things. I mean, one thing is, if you can look at it as a learning opportunity, even though it's super stressful, you're learning how to take care of your parents, which can apply to yourself, which you can share with your children. Also have a backup plan, because you are busy attorneys. Is there somebody that you can call, whether it's your family member or somebody else, that if there's an emergency, you stay at work and they take care of it? Or can you hire a local care manager or somebody? The other thing is to learn how to resolve conflict in your family. And then for the workplace, it's to have, so I have a lot of companies that have caregiver groups. So these are employee resource groups for caregivers, so that companies are recommending that, yes, we realize we have caregivers. We're establishing groups for you so that you can get together and share tips and share resources, so that you have support from one another, and so that it's okay to talk about elder care in the workplace, like it's okay to talk about having children. So there really is, there's so much that can be done that I know that we can't all talk about in this short hour.
Thank you so much. Yeah, these kind of things, as I said, that we cannot talk so often at the workplace, because we worry so much about the promotion and as lawyers, we don't want to be looked as a weak person, and that's, as Ulla said, it's a little bit difficult to show our weakness. The caregiving is not necessarily a weakness, but it looks like a weakness, and people do not share those kind of things. But that's a great idea if we can talk each other, and if we say that I'm a caregiver, and talk to somebody who is in the same situation, we can share the idea and help each other. That would help our mental health a lot, I believe. Um, so next question, is there anything you like to add, Idalla?
So yeah, I like what Pamela and Felipe said that, but I have to explain that sometimes as a lawyer and attorney law, it's hard to advocate for ourselves. Yeah, we usually, like, my point of view is sometimes have problem as like with consumer law, and I avoid going to court. I try to do everything ex officio because it demands so much emotion and so much time and work to defend our clients. And when you do have to do it to yourself, like but for yourself, it's kind of hard. And it's really true that we have to prepare ourselves, make everything more legal as possible, and also be capable to recognize when you can and you cannot handle something. Especially here in Brazil, it was funny because I was in my grandma's house last weekend, and she was talking to me about her friend that needs some care, and she had one daughter and one son. And my grandma said, "Well, usually for sure, the daughter will take care of her." And I was like, "Grandma, maybe she can, maybe they can make a payment together to hire someone." And she was like, "No, but she's the daughter. It's her obligation to do that." So it's hard to explain that to my 88 years old grandmother. But now, as we are a new generation, we have to switch our mind to that type of thought. going to therapy, as Philippe said, is is a big deal to try to understand your own limits. So if you know your limits, you also can help and assist other people. The second additional thing I want to do that is more like a professional side. I want to remind you that caregiving should not be viewed solely as a personal issue, also a diversity, equity, and talent retention issue. The IB profession benefits from different perspectives and experiences, yet many highly qualified professionals may limit their career opportunities or step back from leadership roles because of caregiving responsibilities. Creating more flexible and supportive environments helps retain talent and strengthens the profession as a whole, as Pamela said. And professional associations can also play an important role by promoting discussions, as this one we're doing now, sharing best practice and ensuring that network and leadership opportunities are accessible to professionals with caregiving responsibilities. We must remember that those who are caregivers also need care. So thank you.
That's a great point. How about Ulla? Do you have anything to add?
I just want to take up Idalla's last point. I think that's a really important one, especially for all of us who are also in a position to create a workplace atmosphere which is friendly towards caregivers and so on. So I think if we manage to create an atmosphere in the firms, in the attorneys' offices, which is positive towards delegating tasks and which is positive towards sharing work between attorneys and taking up, I think we would have achieved a great step toward making it easier for caregivers. It's still not easy, but it's at least easier. If you know you can rely on somebody who will take up your job, at least in that amount as you wish to entrust it. We had this discussion before because we are all independent and every one of us does the best job, we know it, but it cannot be delegated. But still, I think if we can delegate at least some of our tasks without fearing any, well, negative impact on our career chances or also our reputation in the firm, I think that would be a great job.
That's right. And yeah, I've never had chance to talk like this subject with my colleagues yet before, but now we have this chance. That's a great point. That if we can help each other at the workplace, as even as a lawyer, I think that the entire firm, entire legal profession becomes better. And as Pamela said at the beginning, I think that's not for very specific people. That's for everybody. It's our problem that we will face this problem anytime. I mean, everybody's problem. So if that's the case, as Ulla said, we can help each other and dedicate the work. It's not like you are losing job or you lose your opportunity to be promoted. So I think that's a good opportunity for all of us, especially myself. This is something that I've never talked to anybody, but this is great. Um, Next question. So for Felipe, would you like to add anything? Anything?
Yes, I think first of all, what you said now um, about the interdependence, as Pamela said in the beginning, and Ulla and Mami now, it's very impressive because the caregiver it summons this attention from the community, so we have a great opportunity to share, to be more sensible in this world, in this huge with this huge amount of technology and screens in the world now. I am also a caregiver. Have little twin daughters and a late stage cancer. My father has late stage cancer, so I have to make way in the spring of life and in the winter of life. And in the middle of that, I think the most incredible thing is to really feel the bridges of connection with other people that we are taking care, how we connect with them, what things in common, and how to enjoy time while we have. We're all gonna die, but meanwhile, what we make in the present moment is the most amazing thing. My father, 2 weeks ago, we went to a horse riding. He has very he has some problems in the knees, in the bones, but we managed to put himself on the horse, and he's an amazing rider. And we was running in 30 kilometers for an hour, like in the middle of the mountains. So it was amazing. So we have to, in very difficult times, it's also a wake-up call for how we're spending our time.
Thank you, Felipe. I
Thank
want
you
to
very much.
ask you another question. So I know that you are very busy in your profession. It's very um, time you time constrained profession, but still you are managing as a caregiver. You Thank you for sharing your a great story with your father. But what's the uh, how you can manage in those two things? It sounds great that you spend time with your father, but it's totally different world, your professional life and time with your father and family.
Yes, first of all, I can make my time, my calendar with the patients. So there's a great logistics for kids, father, and patients. So I have to pay a lot of attention, and my mantra is one thing at a time. One thing at a time. I do one thing, I pay attention, and my identity of psychologist. Now, when we are working now with a patient in a therapy, I am not myself. So I am a fountain of hearing, of freedom, of connection, but I'm not Felipe exactly. So I'm hearing, and when ends the session, I have to be Felipe and how to be Felipe. So this I got used to how I and this involves how I shape my body, my movements, my face and my thoughts and my projection of the future. So when we realize that, when we reflect about that, it gets better with the time. So I worked with a lot of acceptance, but not submission. It's very different. The acceptance is like a blue dot in the GPS. Here I am. Submission is like okay, now I don't have to go. But yes, we have a lot of places to go, and I like to be creative. It's like I feel I use a lot of science, but my attitude is more like an art. Life is not always beautiful. Suffering penetrates our time, but with emotional recognition, recognition. Now, with how we can know that our minds are not ourselves every time. How our mind is now, it's like clouds in the sky, and we can't change that. So we have we need to have these optics of freedom, you know, and that helped me a lot. Oh, and of course, 15 years of mindfulness brings me a lot of tools for how when I feel overloaded.
Thank you. Thank you, Felipe. So let me ask each three of you one by one the final word, what your whatever that you like to say about this caregiving and the professional. Pamela?
You know, I take away something from everything that each one of you have said. And I think if you can possibly remain in the moment when it's happening and you're dealing with what you're dealing with, and look for the beauty and look for the laughter and the fun in it, if at all possible, because caregiving it's a beautiful thing to be able to do, but it's also very stressful. And like Felipe says, if you can kind of wrap your mind around the positives of it while you're dealing with the negatives, it makes it a lot easier, but honestly, it's very hard to do. And I will tell you, Felipe, I've been doing transcendental meditation for 20 years in the morning and the evening, and it really helps. So I would recommend that for anybody.
Thank you. Ulla?
Well, actually, I can only echo the words of my co-speakers here and co-panelists. But I think make the best of it, out of it, independent of how it is now, whether you are prepared for the situation or not. The situation is like it is. Accept it and make the best out of it and somehow also enjoy.
That's true. That's true. Idalla?
Wow, so many beautiful words. I cannot say too much different from it. But I learned I'm not like Felipe, but I've been doing therapy for like for 4 years. So I learned that it's not bad to feel bad sometimes. So if you can respect like your time, if you're in a bad day, you can embrace it. If you want to cry, you should cry. But you must remember that the next day is another day, and you have the opportunity to redo and do it whenever you think. But respect your feelings. That if you're feeling bad with the situation, if you feel frustrated, it's okay. But remember that you're still alive. You still have life to enjoy, and you can be better and present at the moment.
Thank you so much. I was waiting for any questions from the audience, but I don't see any questions. So, do you have any question to other speakers? If you do, please let me know. We still have some time. Pamela, you said that there's a cultural aspect of the caregiving. Do you have any experience, the special problem from different culture?
So I talk to a lot of people all over the world. You know, what I tend to find is, so, and I'll just use my personal experience. So India, Africa, Latinx countries, they're very, we want to take care of our own. And in those families, it can be quite a struggle because usually it is the daughters and the women. But what I'm seeing is, because the world is so complicated and living in some places is so expensive, even those families admit that it's hard if you're not living together, right, with your parents or with siblings or whatever, to even be able to take care of people. So my recommendation in those types of cultures is, if you're not comfortable hiring help outside, you've got to find a way to gain agreement in your family that one person isn't going to do it all, that if you can share it, you're going to find a way to share it. And if you can find outside assistance and help, you will do that. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to pass down these generational caregiving expectations, and this is my opinion, from generation to generation, or generational poverty from generation to generation. Eventually, the generations want to get together so that this doesn't become a problem for future generations by being more proactive and learning.
Thank you. that's something that the Idalla mentioned, the cultural expectation to usually that daughters need to take care of. I think it's similar in Japan, but we are changing that now, like Idalla's generation, the ways to see the things a little bit different, but we are moving slowly. Um, Ulla, so in your country, is that any different?
Not really. I think we are similar to the US, more or less, but as regards percentages. But I think what Idalla also said when she mentioned her grandma, I think it's also expectations from the elder generation. They somehow expect that caregiving is done by their daughters and granddaughters or female members of the family somehow. So it's I'm not sure whether it really changes or whether somehow some of them at least have to learn it the hard way that it's also men who can do the caregiving. So
I do receive a lot of questions when I'm going to have kids or not, because I need someone to take care of me. I say, I have two cats. Maybe until I get older, they figure out how to take care of me as well. So, right. So, Pamela, you do give you do teach people how to become caregivers, right? Like professionally.
Yeah, so the education that I do is all around caregiving and managing caregiving within the family. So how do you have conversations? How do you talk to your parents that expect you to be their caregivers? What does a care plan look like? So I deal with the medical, the financial, the legal, a lot of family conflict. And one thing is, mediation is kind of like this bad word, and I wish there was another word for it, but family mediation to work these things out to get everybody on the same page and agreement can be a very good thing, because families then put that in writing and they can look back and say, well, we agreed to do this. So, one of us can't go in a different direction now because this was what our agreement was. So, that can be very helpful in families if people are willing to do it.
I have this feeling that sometimes when you think about a caregiver professional, you only think about how should this person learn how to handle the person, how to give a bath, how to know how to change diapers or etc. But now after that, since we start talking about this issue, everything around me started to point me to this subject. It's kind of funny that sometimes you leave without having knowledge about the stuff, and you have the opportunity to know about a little bit about it, all this information and notice, and people talking about the some subject come to your life. And now I realize that in the past we thought too much about learning the skills to take care of someone, but we forget that dealing with family and the mental side is like worse than actually doing the job.
It is. The emotional part is so much harder than the task. Anybody can learn how to bathe. Anybody can learn how to do those things, but it's the other part that is the hardest.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, Felipe, last word?
Yeah, just to add something about these two things. First, the main problem. Now, of course, you're absolutely right. And here in Brazil, I think the fathers and mothers have to change for their kids, for men, boys, have to change what means to take care. This to care here in Brazil, when we say this for a boy, generally we are saying that something's dangerous. Take care. So there is something you have to be aware and take care. So maybe you will have fear, but take care of yourself. Okay. And when we say this for a girl, take care, we mean to be a caregiver. So it's completely different, and it's in the education, the beginning of the problem. So I think we should have a bigger psycho education to change that. because it's unbelievable how the overload rests on the woman. So
So much.
it's bizarre.
I think we now reached the end of today's webinar. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our incredible speakers, Pamela, Felipe, Idalla, and Ulla, for sharing the invaluable insights today. Listening to our discussion, I decided that I need to talk to my family and siblings this weekend, and it's a great learning opportunity for me. It is really vital part of mental health and D&I as well. Thank you so much to all of our attendees from all over the world for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
You.